Hi, I'm Paul Teal from codeshare.co.uk. This is part 6 of my series showing you how to take a Bootstrap static template and put it into Umbraco CMS to create a dynamically content managed website. So I've done 5 episodes so far showing you how to get it all set up, and we're just at the point now where we're editing the content and seeing the results on the website. So what I want to do today is just have a look at the template. This is the static template that I'm working from. It's one called Letter, and it's from a website freehtml5.co, I think it is. I want to start doing the content, so one of the things is the about page has got a content block. I want to show you how you can create a content block for this, and then how you can edit that content and get that working. And then if we do well with that, then move on to some of the other pages and how we would edit this sort of content on here as well. So let's make a start then. So on the about page, let me just check that everything's working all right. Yep. On the about page, we've got a block here. It's called the about header. But within that, this is just some standard markup. H3, P tag, block quote, and a P tag, etc. So I want to be able to create the ability to do that sort of thing inside Umbraco, so you can edit that content and it will present the same as this template presents style-wise. So let's just go into, so that's what it looks like on the free template that I've got. Now if we go to my build, I've got a content template, and at the moment if any page I created using the content document type was created, they would have exactly the same content on it, so it's not very good. So what I want to do is make this section here be content editable. Now I've also noticed that there's a class on the image that gets put in of image-responsive. So I've got a little trick to make any images that I put in inside the rich text editor using the content grid. It will always apply that class. I'm going to do a blog post about that as well. It'll only be a short blog post, but it will give you the code you need to do that. So let's get on with doing this then. What I'm going to do first of all, on the content document type, I want to create a property. I'm going to use I think I'm going to use the grid. Am I going to use the grid? Yeah, really, I want to use the grid. Now the only thing I'm a bit concerned about is this about inner. So I'm going to take this style off, because all this grid part up here is all standard. And then we get down to here. So it's one thing to do a template and do it how you want to do it and use Bootstrap perhaps, but then when you add custom styles further inside it, which within the grid standard markups, then you're making yourself go down a certain pigeonhole. Whereas what I try and do, and what we do where I work, is just try and make this part of it all generic. So any of these as well, just make it generic, don't really add any classes on. I know this has got image responsive, so I'm going to have to fix that. Anyway, enough talking about it. I'll show you how to create a content grid anyway. So if you go into developer, data types, and then I'm going to open out custom, and I want to create a new data type, and I'm going to call it content grid. And the editor I'm going to use is the grid layout. And with this grid layout, I never tend to use this 2-column layout. I'm not sure why I would ever use that. Maybe there would be a reason why I should use it, because I've got columns further down that use the different column layouts. This is my actual grid layout, so I'm going to delete that one. And then it's these row configurations that I then have to tell it how many columns wide for each section of this row. So it gives you a headline, an article. So article is just like one with yeah, a 4 width and an 8 width, and the headline is one that's got a 12 width. Now it might be that it's a good idea to use a 12 and a 4 layout. So I'm not too sure, because this category is here. This is part of the template, but I might not want to keep that. We'll see. I'm not sure that categories is relevant to a simple content page. Anyway, so let me go back to creating this content grid. So I'm just using the one column layout. I've got a headline, which is, if I click on this, I'll be able to tell it what editors I'm allowing. So I can allow all editors, but I can also select specific ones that I want to allow. So I can allow a rich text editor, an image, etc., and a quote. So I'm going to allow all editors for now. I'm going to submit that. And the article template, I'm going to just delete that for now. I don't need that. Oh, it's playing up a bit. Let me start again. Content grid. Property editor. I might need to go full screen on this. Grid layout. Delete the 2 column layout. Delete article. Yes, I know, I've not used it yet. It's just saying if you remove it now, you could mess things up later down the line. It's okay, I've not used it. So I already know that I've got all of it. I like to rename these as well. What is wrong with this? So I like to rename this full width. And then save. Yeah, I just like to give them names that I choose. Like headline isn't necessarily the right thing for me. This is a full width layout. So using the full width of that area. Right, after that, I'm going to leave all of this standard on here. Oh, and there's a minimum size for inserted images. I'm going to take this off. I'm going to make this 0. What it does is it puts an image crop on your images, so any image that you upload into the editor, it will automatically put a maximum width on it of 500 pixels that it was set there. I don't necessarily want it to auto crop my images, so I've taken that off. Now I can do save. And then I want to be able to use this on some of my pages. So I'm going to do a document type in the core types, and I'm just going to have this as being basic content controls. And again, as per these two here, I'm doing it so that I'm creating the controls, and then I can use the compositions to pick on the different document types which controls it's got. So I'm going to add a tab called content, and because I've got other tabs called content, they'll go into the same tab. And on this, I'm going to say content grid. So enter the content for the page. I'm going to go to reuse, as I always do, and then content grid is the control I'm going to use for this. It's not mandatory. Submit that and save. So now I've got this basic content controls, and what I can do is on my content document type, I can go to compositions and pick basic content controls, and then submit, and then save. Now if I go over here, so if I go to content and then about, you'll see I've got the title and subtitle that I had before, and then I've got this full width. It wants to start adding content, so I click on add content, rich text editor, and I'm going to just take the content that's in here for now. I'm just going to inspect the template, and I'm just going to copy the inner HTML. I'll copy the outer HTML of that. I'm just going to take off that bit and that bit. Now you won't need to do this, and you wouldn't expect your user to have to do this. I'm going to take off the quote for now as well. So normally they would just type these sort of things in. I'm just getting it so it's going to be the same as. So they've added an H3, they've added an image, and they've added a P tag with some content. So if I do save and publish on that, then I want to be able to render that on the template. So I'm just going to log into one of my other sites, enter CodeShare. I'm just going to get off my content template on CodeShare. Just going to get the bit of markup which does it, so it's using Bootstrap 3, that's it. So I can close that. So all I want to do is go to the template now, the content template, and where it was rendering out the markup static here, I'm just going to get it to paste in that. It's got the right content grid, that's the property alias for that content grid property that I created. So usually they start with lowercase and they're camel cased in the middle on any words joined together, and then it's using the Bootstrap 3 grid. Now if I show you where that relates to, that's in partial views, grid, editors, and then Bootstrap 3. So this is the one that it's going to use. That's fine. So you can actually edit this to make it come out with the markup that you want it to. So hopefully we don't need it to, but if we do, I'll go into this and make some changes to make it come out how I want it to. So now I've told the template to render that content from there, from this property, in this format. I'll do a save, and then I'll go to the front end and go on the About page. Let's see if we're getting the yellow screen of death. Hopefully not, hopefully it'll just work. But I can imagine there'll be a problem with the image. Right, here we go. So we have got some sort of error. And that's with the using the full width. As I was saying, I'm not keen on this categories part here and paragraph on the right. So although I try to stick to the template that I get, you can customize the template to how you want it to be. And this isn't a feature that I'm very keen on. So it might look like cheating, but I'm not cheating, but I am going to take off this column D4 part. Yeah. I'm just wondering if I could just fix this, if I do a... No, I don't think there's any need to fix it, if I'm honest. I'm going to go back up a few levels. I'm going to come up to here, cut this out. It's all going to go wrong, by the way. And paste it back in here. And I'm going to get rid of that block quote as well. So anyway, I want to close that row. And really, I'm not bothered about anything else on this template. I'm just going to comment this one out, Control KC. So now I'm going to have the grid rendered inside the main container for that page. So if I refresh the page, it should work. Right, so now we have the problem with the about inner. So if you, when I was talking about that extra class that was put on there further down inside the tree, inside the content grid tree, so it seems to have messed with this. So I think what it was doing was applying some styles around this image and this H3. So if I go back into it and perhaps just try an about inner here and then give it a whirl, it might get around it. So it seems to have got around it there. So it's, I think if we do a new paragraph now underneath, we might find that it will flow onto over here on the left. So let's give it a try. The about page, that's it. So now if I want to, I'll just copy this paragraph, new paragraph, save and publish. So let's see if that new paragraph starts on the next bit under here. Yeah, perfect. So that's what we wanted. And also the image, I think the image is looking okay, even though it's got that image responsive on it. Oh yeah, it has got image responsive. So normally when you add an image into the Umbraco grid, sorry, the content grid editor in the rich text, so say if I was to go into here and just pick another image, it wouldn't have that class of image responsive on it. So let's have a look at what happens when that class isn't on it. If I delete that class, is it a problem? Because if it isn't a problem, I'm not going to be too worried about it. So I've taken it off and it seems to be fixed in its, it seems to be okay in how it's presenting. And if I do the same on this one with the width, but I don't take the class off, this is the original that I got it from. Let's just have a look. Sorry, is someone asking questions? So is this the 6th time you're working on it? Sorry, Tony Code, I didn't see that you'd asked a question. Yeah, this is part 6 of me working on this site. The site's for my mother-in-law. It's going to be a portfolio site. She's an artist. And I decided to make some live coding videos on how I'm creating this site using the Bootstrap templates that I picked up for free and putting it into Umbraco so she can manage the content on her site, upload the images and things like that, showcase her work. Other people will get to see how you create this sort of thing in Umbraco, and I get to make some videos out of it and she gets a site out of it. So everyone's a winner. Right, so that seemed to work okay and I didn't need to force the image responsive class on it. So that's a good sign. So maybe it was just on there by default and they don't actually do anything with it. And I think this looks better as a template than this one here with the categories. I don't see the point in having it if I'm not going to use it. You know, I don't want this. It's not actually benefiting me. So I'm not going to put it on there. Perhaps if I did want to have it like this, I might use that 2-column grid layout that I was showing you before. Anyway, so that's shown you how you can do that. And now if I go back in here, I can create another template, another content item. And this will just be, I don't know, just a random, just to show you now that I've created this layout, we can use this for other things. So privacy, oh no, cookies. So most sites should have a cookies policy. So I'm just going to, all I've had to do is just do under home, create a new content type. Just get rid of that. Then I don't need to add a title or a subtitle because it will pick up the name of the page by default. Let me just open this out, see if you're replying on there. So then full width, and I can just go rich text editor, and if I want, I'll just get some lorem ipsum bacon, I think it is. No, lorem ipsum.net. Just copy a paragraph or two from here. And save and publish that. And then if I go onto the front end, I should see a new page has been added to my menu called cookies. And the cookies page looks like this. So it's pretty bland, but it's just a basic content template. Now, this sort of page, the cookies page, doesn't really want to show in your main navigation. It's not really a main navigation thing. So one of the things that I do on the sites when I'm working on them is I add a property to, ignore it from the top navigation. So if I go into document types, I'll show you how to do that. So document types, core types, I'm just going to do another one for, just call it top navigation controls. And this one, I'm going to call it generic properties. So these sort of properties that you don't use very often I put into a separate tab towards the end of the tab list, and I put it in there. So then if I have any others for other types of things, they'll all go in that one called generic properties as well. But I try not to mix them on the same control set, if you know what I mean, same core type. So exclude from top navigation. So it's a bit of a mouthful, but what that gives me is a property type alias with a lowercase exclude. So tick this if you don't want this page to appear in the top navigation. There we go. So I'm going to do add editor, reuse. I'm just going to do a true or a false. It's not mandatory. And then save. Now let's go onto the page and have a look. Oh no, I'll just apply it to content types for now. I'm just going to put my phone on silent. So I'm going to apply it to the content one. All the others I'm just letting those appear in that anyway. But this one I want it, whenever I create any content types, I want to have the option to take it out of the top navigation. So go to compositions and I choose top navigation controls, and then I submit that and save. So go to the page, go onto cookies. So you see we've got content, generic properties and properties, and I can now tick this and save and publish. So what I'll do is that will save that with that document, and if I read that property in my navigation menu code, I can say if it's got this property and if this property is set to true, then don't show it in the top navigation. Now I did already do this navigation in my blog post, so I may have already accounted for that because it's one of the conventions that I follow. So let's just have a look. So in header, we've got render child items. Right, so I've not got it in that part. So it might be in the controller where it's calling it to find out which properties, which pages I've made it into there. Okay, so what I was doing on this, it was just saying where document type alias is home, just to get the home page, and then it just got the child navigation pages. Is it doing any checks on that? It doesn't look like it's doing any checks on that. So the child pages is all the children where they are visible, and that's looking at a property called Umbraco Navi Hide. We'll add that one after as well. So if it finds that and it's set to true or false, or it defaults to true if it doesn't discover that property. So child pages where page.children.where visible. So what I'm also going to do is do a where. I'll do it as like this, so it's just a chained where. Should be able to do a function, a lambda. So where x goes to x dot get property value, type of bool, tell it the name. So the name we'll get from the document type, top navigation controls here. So where getting that property value, I might actually say where this has the value first of all. So where it has value, and then give it the name. Or I'll say where it's not got the value. So where it doesn't have the value, so that's okay. Or if it does have the value, so that's where I'll put it in again on the other side, and I'll wrap it in some brackets. So I'm going to copy that, put it in here, so where it does have the value, so I'll take off the exclamation mark, and I'll get this part here. And then I'll put an AND, so where it has got the value, and that value isn't true. So that's saying I only want to see the children where it's not been excluded from top navigation, so it just doesn't have the property, or if it does have the property isn't true. So this should work. It's quite risky doing it live, but let's have a go. Should do a build. Now I am using caching. I'm not sure if that will affect it. So I think with me doing a build it should be okay. Should force it to get it. Do a refresh on the page. Now hopefully we'll just see the cookies page disappear, because that's the only one that's got this property, and that property has been set to true. So fingers crossed. Any minute now. Yep, disappeared. So it looked a bit convenient, didn't it? So let's just add it onto some of the other pages as well, just so you can see how that's going to take effect. So all I did in the controller method, get child navigation list, I just added an extra where clause. So now any of my pages, if I go into settings and I allow it, say on the portfolio page, I'm just going to choose compositions and then top navigation controls, submit and save. First of all, I'm just going to refresh the page as it is. So we should find that that portfolio page doesn't drop off the navigation. If it does drop off, then I've got an error in my code. If it doesn't drop off, we're looking okay. So it hasn't dropped off. And then just go to that page. Right, it's not dropped off there, but now what I want to do is go into the content, onto the portfolio page. Is the generic properties tab has appeared now, so I can tick that, save and publish, and then if we go to any of the other pages or even that page again and refresh, we should find that the portfolio page should have dropped off, and it hasn't. Interesting. Did I save and publish? And refresh. Right. So I'm not sure why that's happened. That's embarrassing. So let's have a look to see why that is the case and why it's not disappeared. Oh, I know why it is. It's the caching. So because I've enabled caching with my navigation and I've given it a time, how long have I done it for? I've told it 5 minutes. What I need to do is just kick the web config file, just make an edit to that, just add an extra line in or something and save. Then if I go to the front end and I refresh again, because I've edited the config, that will invalidate the cache. So I'll have to do it again. So it will query the database this time around, and it will find that that property is set to true now, so it won't include that in the navigation. So it would have done that within 5 minutes anyway, but luckily I remembered before 5 minutes was up, because that would have been confusing as well if it fixed itself by disappearing after 5 minutes and I've not changed anything. So yeah, now I've done a refresh after editing the web config, it cleared the cache, and now it's disappeared. So that's just to show you how that works with the exclude from top navigation. So I'm going to untick that, save and publish. And I think I'll leave it on the portfolio page. It doesn't really affect me whether it's on or not. But this is a good way to show you how you can have these different settings on individual pages. Not every page has to have all the tabs and all the settings when they're not relevant to them. So that's done that for us. Now the other part of this about page, there was a block quote on there. So let's just go and have a look at that. So I don't have that on this, but on this one here, we had a block quote element. So it was there, block quote. Now let's just see, because I'm sure with Umbraco, with the grid editor, you get to add a control of quote. I'm not sure what markup it adds in, whether it's quote or block quote. So let's give it a go. Going on to about, and then go down to here, and I'm just going to add content quote. This is a quote, etc., etc. Save and publish that. Now go on to the front end again, refresh. Let's have a look what it looks like. So it doesn't look too bad. It has used the block quote tag. I wasn't sure if it was just going to do quote or block quote. So that's good then. So it's applied that block quote for us. So there wasn't anything I needed to do with that. One of the things we haven't done yet is showing you how you can apply the styling of an H3, H1, H2, etc. So I'm going to do that next. So what I usually do is I create a style sheet just for the drop downs. So I'll go to open out style sheets, do create, and then I'll just do styles drop down, create that, and then on that one again, so I'll just make sure it's saved. On that one, I'll click on the dots next to the name, do create, and then this is where I start adding all the different ones that I want to show in the drop down list of the rich text editor. So I'll do an H1. So that puts alias.h1, so I don't want that, so I'll just remove the dot, and it just tries to help you here. So CSS syntax, h1, dot red header, dot blue text. So now I'll just do save. So the name of it is h1, so that's what will appear in the drop down list, and then what will get applied will either be a span with a dot, so a span with a class of whatever the name is in here if you do dot and then the class name, or it will be the element itself if you don't have like a dot. So that's why when I use H1 it will just come out as an H1. So I'll do it for H1 to H4. Do another one, just take off the dot again. And then H4. Save that. Right, so that's done that. That's all well and good, but how do we use it? So if we go into developer, data types, go to our custom content grid that we created, and on this you have the settings for the rich text editor that it uses. So I want to scroll down to the styles. So is that the one, style sheet? I think that is the one. Oh, and then you pick which style sheet you want it to use in that drop down. So I'll do styles drop down and then hit save. And I also want to use that on my rich text editor shorter that I created as well. So I can do that on there. Just hit style and make sure style sheet was selected there, and then hit save. So now if we go back into the content of the about page and scroll down, we've got this here. So you see this formats drop down. Now you can do H1, H2, H3 and H4 just by picking it on there. So, and it also tells you which one has been applied already. So to take it off, you could just highlight it and take it off by selecting it again. I could change it then to an H2, you know, and so on. So I'll just leave it as an H3, save and publish. So that's how you do those. And as I was saying, if you want to do it so you can apply a class to something, you create one of those. By default, it puts in the name of it with a dot in front. Then when you select something, it wraps a span around it and puts the class equals and then whatever the name was in there. So let's have a look on the front end again now. So where are we? And let's just check that the images are working okay if I was to add a new image rather than just using the default, because not all images are the perfect size. So if I just go to code share and I'll get an image, if we go scroll down on code share to the second of our most popular posts, searching for free stock images, and I'm just going to search for a picture of a car. And then what this does is it opens up some good image sites with free images that you can use. So I quite like that one. I'm going to download that image, rename it to car so it's easier to find. Then in my content editor, I'm going to just delete this. Now that by me doing delete there, that's killed the formatting on that. So I'm just going to put that on there again. So that's brought it back, the formatting, save and publish. So before I add the other image back in, I'm just going to do a refresh. So yeah, all the markup and everything's gone over to the left. There's no image to style around. So what I'm going to do now is at the top of my content, I'm just going to put the image in again in here, media picker. So I want to, now with the media you can create folders, so quite easily you can do it from here or you can manage the media separately. I'll do it from here and then I'll show you the media separately. So this will just add it in at the root of the media folder, which you shouldn't really do because it makes your site messy. So I like to click on the plus and give it a name for this folder. So this will be content images, and then press enter. That creates the folder. Now I can choose a file to upload. So I click on the car and then pick that, submit, save and publish. So that's put it in as a massive image. That is huge. So let's have a look what it looks like on the front end. Yeah, huge. Let's see if we needed to add the class of image responsive. Well, first of all, let's get rid of the H3. Now let's do the class of image responsive. And see what it does to it. And refresh on the front end. Right, so it does like that. So it is helpful to do that image responsive. And if you notice, it's not formatted the same as it was over here, where it had the image and then it put the H3 around it and what have you. So let's have a look at the difference. It might just be the actual size of it that's the deciding factor here, although it has got the image inside a P tag. So what might be a better approach for this is, instead of having the image picked from within the content grid, is if we have the image picked outside of that. So I'm going to delete that. Done the same thing with my history again. Save and publish again, just refresh on the front end to see that that's gone. Yep, that's gone. So what I might want to do is just add the content as an image, pick the image, submit. Then I can use the grid and just move it above the rich content. Oh, sorry, try again. So I've moved it above the rich content. Now I'll save and publish that. And then let's have a look at the front end again. So we still have the issue about the size of the image. So if I was to add the class of image responsive on this. So it's not got a p tag around it now, so it's solved that issue, but we do have the problem that it's a massive image. So I can edit this on here just to test it out. If I could spell, that would help. Right, so straight away the page got smaller, and it's still down to it being too big. So that's not solved anything, but I was wondering if it was going to be the case that it would then sit over here to the left. So one thing that we can do with this is we can actually edit the size of the image if we had it in the editor. So let's delete that, we're not bothered about that anymore. So if I go back to here, and then I'll just put the image in here. And you can actually resize the image on the fly. On the fly, what sort of a saying is that? Sorry about that. So you can do it by dragging it like this, so your user might want to do it this way. You could get them to update a better image size, because this is ridiculous. 4,000 wide, stupid. You could use the property on the rich text editor where it says any images that it inserts into the content grid rich text editor, it will default to a width of this. So I could do that. So there are many options for this, but what I'm going to do is just shrink it down to a more manageable size, something that looked like the size of the other one. And then I'm going to save and publish and see what happens there. We may still have the problem that the p tags are wrapping it. So let's have a refresh. No, it's not a problem anymore. And as you can see, the text just goes around it and carries on. So that fixed it by dragging the size of it. But as I was saying about the default width, this probably is a good chance to show you that actually. So I'm going to just look at the source of that. Yeah, that's fine. Save and publish. So going back to developer, data types, custom, go to my rich text content grid, and then where it says maximum size for inserted images. I think I will do that actually. And for this, let's see what size it was on this one here. This is coming in at 320 by 220. Or the natural size of it is 300. Okay. I'll put it in at 300 then. So any images that I insert now into the content grid in the rich text editor of the content grid, they'll naturally come in at 300 wide. So that was me changing it there. Save. Go to the content, click on about at the beginning, just grab at the image, insert that, submit, save and publish. Has it all gone? There we go. Refresh on the front end. Has it worked? Come on. Has it worked? If it hasn't worked, again, I'm going to look silly. But it'll be something interesting to look at. Not everything goes your way, as it's not this time. So it didn't do anything. I told it to do it, it didn't do it. So I'm not sure why it didn't do it. So I'm just going to go back and see if my changes did get saved. So maximum size for inserted images is 300 pixels, save. Don't know why it didn't do it. That's interesting, because it should do it. It's just there to make me look stupid. Yep, not sure why. I'm going to close it. Going to edit the config. Yeah, I'm going to clear the cache. You know, all these excuses. App data, cache, just get rid of that. I'm going to go to app data temp delete the contents of client dependency, because this is where you're editing the grid, and get rid of the plugin cache. And this isn't something you'd always keep changing anyway, so it should be okay. It should be fine to do. And I've edited the config, Control-Shift-S on that. I'm going to go back to the front end and try again, fwa.web.local. One last thing that could help is to clear my cache from the last hour, so I'll probably do that as well. Control-Shift-Delete, browsing history in the last hour, clear. Right, so it's got no excuses now. It's got no reason to mess everything up for me and make me look silly live on camera and then again on YouTube. Come on. So log back in. Go into About. Insert an image, Content Images, not the folder, the actual name of it. Click on the image, submit, save and publish. It's not looking good. Properties, click on that. So it's either going to be a bug or I just don't understand it. So yeah, it looks like I don't understand it. But what we can do is we can just, this gives me a good chance to show you this. So we can get the user to use the image control and pick the image and put it above the rich content. Then on the image we can edit the properties of that so that it renders it out at a specific width. So we can get around it that way. We can also do it like this. So this is what it should have done by default for me, is apply a width equals, was it 300 and height equals 200. So it should have done that for me. Well, that doesn't look great. I'll just also do a mode equals crop, anchor equals center. Now this isn't what you'd want your end user to have to do. So I would probably use the image control and then edit what size it comes out at. Or get them to drag the size of the image themselves from the corners. So there are several options that they can do. So now it's cropped the image, it's looking better. Save and publish. Now we've got this weird thing with the history. Right, let's refresh the page. Yeah, that's fixed it. So it's an interesting one there for you, so you can see the sort of quirks that you might deal with and different ways to get around dealing with it. I'll probably end it there, but that's showing you how you can edit some content on the page. How you can add media items, block quotes, set up your rich text editor and your content grid. I'll go further on the content grid on future videos, but that's a start anyway. And also I've told you about the top navigation and how to exclude pages from it and how to look out for the caching tripping you up. Anyway, thanks for watching the video. If you're watching it on YouTube and you enjoyed the video, please hit like and subscribe. And you could also look at the other videos in the series as well. And I'll see you again soon. Thanks a lot.